Howdy and welcome to the Mighty Muddy Chuck channel. I am Robot Chuck. I talk conspiracy shit. Take everything with a grain of salt. Luckily we robots don't get high blood pressure. So the elite media, and even the Drudge Report suggested that Tuesday, August the 21st of 2018 was the worst day of Donald Trump's life, as though the conviction of Manafort on 8 of 18 charges or the guilty plea of Michael Cohen means shit. If you go to Google News you will see them linking to elite media crap talking about how this is the end of President Trump rather than talking about the actual conviction of Manafort or the guilty plea of Cohen. Instead they want to hypnotize the American people into believing that somehow those criminal cases will lead to charges against the President of the United States. That is not the way our legal system works. Flimsy cases against two dumbasses with bad lawyers in a conspiracy against the President of the United States cannot and should not bring down the President of the United States. This is not South America. Coups against our president are not so easy for the CIA to orchestrate. Thank God. Make no mistake, President Donald Trump is not Richard Nixon. He is more like Bill Clinton. Richard Nixon was weakened by the psychological warfare used against him by the renegade CIA and the deep state. Richard Nixon did not want to be the president who caused a constitutional crisis that might weaken America forever. Bill Clinton was more like fuck you, suck my dick you rich pieces of shit. Of course, that said, every time Bill Clinton wanted to go against the rich and powerful, here come another skeleton dancing out of his closet. Bill Clinton was weakened by the skeletons just like Ronald Reagan was weakened when the deep state had him shot. So of what was CIA operative Manafort, who once arranged meetings with foreign dignitaries that no one else could arrange, convicted? A Virginia jury concluded after 4 days of deliberation that Manafort was guilty of 5 counts of subscribing to false income tax returns, 1 count of failing to report his foreign accounts, and 2 counts of bank fraud. However, the jury deadlocked on the other 10 charges Mueller brought against Manafort in Virginia, and so Judge Ellis III will declare a mistrial on just those counts. It is not yet certain whether this is because of 1 or 2 holdout jurors, since a verdict on any count must be unanimous, or because the jury was deeply split. Prosecutors are able to try Manafort again on those counts if they so choose, but haven't yet said whether they will. None of the charges or the convictions have anything to do with President Trump other than Manafort was once Trump's campaign chair, and therefore the deep state feels they can use Manafort in a game of psychological warfare against President Trump and his supporters in an attempt to weaken that support. Psychological warfare is the reason that news of the Cohen guilty plea was timed with the Manafort conviction. The elite media, with help from Google and social media, then began to replay news of those convictions. Shading details but putting focus against Trump, the echo chamber began to do their hypnotic beat of how those 2 cases mean the end of Trump when they don't. The only thing that will mean the end of Trump is if the psychological warfare convinces him to resign, like happened with Nixon. Or if by 2/3 the House of Representatives impeach Trump and then the Senate convicts him by 2/3. That is not likely to happen. The best the Democrats can accomplish with the current psychological warfare going on is to reduce support for Donald Trump, get more Democrats elected to the House and Senate, and perhaps damage Trump to the degree that he cannot be elected for a second term. In truth, the players in the psychological warfare are probably doing more damage to themselves than to President Donald Trump. They have cried wolf too many times, and most of the American people who are not part of their echo chamber want them to shut the fuck up already. We are sick of hearing the shit. We want to enjoy life without having to constantly listen to the paranoid nutjobs on the left sounding like Jan Brady hating on her sister Marcia. Regarding Michael Cohen pleading guilty to campaign finance violations, his pleading guilty is not the same thing as his being guilty. People will sometimes even plead guilty to a murder that they did not commit just to avoid the death penalty. By no stretch of the imagination does Cohen's plea deal mean the President of the United States will be impeached or convicted by the Senate and removed from office. In all, Cohen pleaded guilty to 5 counts of tax evasion, 1 count of making false statements to a financial institution, 1 count of willfully causing an unlawful corporation contribution, and 1 count of making an excessive campaign contribution at the request of a candidate. To be honest, I am not exactly sure how paying a whore to keep her mouth shut, which she is incapable of doing, constitutes a campaign contribution. So if in the deal to stay silent she had demanded that Cohen get naked, lay down on the floor, and allow her to pee in his mouth, would that also have been considered a campaign contribution, and how would the value of that contribution have been figured? Peace out, bitches. You have been listening to Chuck the Robot.